Every morning, millions of people begin their day with a simple drink. Tea, coffee, something sweet. They seem ordinary. But centuries ago, these beverages were anything but ordinary. They launched global trade, enriched powerful empires, inspired revolutions, and, in some cases, fueled systems of exploitation that changed the lives of millions. How did something poured into a cup become powerful enough to shape the modern world? Today, tea is one of the most popular drinks on earth. For millions of people, it's simply part of a daily routine, a warm cup in the morning, a quiet break in the afternoon, or a way to unwind at the end of the day. But centuries ago, tea was far more than a comforting beverage. It was a luxury worth crossing oceans for. It sparked fierce competition between nations, fueled wars, and helped shape one of the largest empires in history. The story begins in ancient China. According to Chinese tradition, tea was discovered around 2737 BC when leaves from a wild tea plant drifted into a pot of boiling water prepared for Emperor Shen Nong. Whether the story is legend or history, tea gradually became an important part of Chinese culture. Over the centuries, tea evolved from a medicinal drink into an everyday tradition. During the Tang and Song dynasties, it became deeply woven into Chinese society, celebrated in poetry, art, and elaborate tea ceremonies. For a long time, China was the world's only major producer of tea. That gave it something incredibly valuable, a product the rest of the world desperately wanted. When Portuguese and Dutch merchants first introduced tea to Europe during the 16th and 17th centuries, it quickly became a symbol of wealth and status. Only the richest families could afford it. But nowhere did tea capture people's imagination quite like Britain. By the early 1700s, demand for tea had exploded. Ships of the British East India Company traveled thousands of miles to purchase tea from China, returning with cargoes that were worth fortunes. Tea was no longer just a luxury. It had become a national obsession. There was only one problem. China had little interest in buying British goods. Instead, Chinese merchants demanded payment in silver. Year after year, enormous amounts of silver flowed out of Britain and into China, creating a growing trade imbalance that worried British officials. They needed a way to reverse it. Their answer would have consequences that reshaped world history. The British East India Company began exporting opium, grown in British-controlled India, into China. Despite Chinese laws banning the drug, illegal opium sales expanded rapidly. As addiction spread across China, silver began flowing back into British hands. When the Chinese government moved to stop the trade, tensions erupted into the First Opium War in 1839. Britain's modern navy defeated Qing China, forcing it to sign the Treaty of Nanking in 1842. The agreement opened additional Chinese ports to foreign trade, granted Britain favorable commercial rights, and ceded Hong Kong to British control. A drink enjoyed in British homes had become deeply connected to international conflict and imperial expansion. But Britain also realized something else. Depending entirely on Chinese tea left the empire vulnerable. If Britain could grow tea itself, it could free its empire from that dependence. In the hills of northeastern India, British botanists and entrepreneurs discovered that tea plants could thrive in the region of Assam. Soon, vast plantations spread across India and later Ceylon, now Sri Lanka. The British transformed tea cultivation into a massive industry, supported by railways, ports, and global shipping networks. By the late 19th century, tea from British colonies was being shipped around the world. What had once been China's exclusive product had become one of the defining commodities of the British Empire. A simple leaf had connected continents. It influenced trade, diplomacy, colonization, and even war. More than almost any other beverage, tea demonstrated that something as ordinary as a daily drink could become a force powerful enough to shape the destiny of nations. But tea wasn't the only drink changing the world. While ships carried tea across oceans, another beverage was quietly transforming cities from Istanbul to London, not through war, but through conversation, commerce, and ideas. If tea helped expand an empire across oceans, coffee transformed what happened inside the world's greatest cities. Today, billions of cups of coffee are consumed every year. For many people, it's simply the drink that starts the morning. But centuries ago, coffee became something much more powerful. It changed the way people worked, traded, debated, and even governed. Its story begins in the highlands of Ethiopia. According to a famous legend, a goat herder named Kaldi noticed that his goats became unusually energetic after eating bright red berries from a certain plant. Curious, local monks experimented with the berries and discovered they helped them stay awake during long hours of prayer. Whether the story is true or not, historians agree that coffee cultivation spread from Ethiopia to Yemen, where it became an important part of daily life by the 15th century. From the bustling port city of Mocha, coffee traveled throughout the Islamic world. Soon, coffee houses appeared in cities such as Cairo, Damascus, and Constantinople. These weren't just places to enjoy a drink. They became gathering places where merchants negotiated deals, scholars exchanged ideas, poets performed, and travelers shared news from distant lands. In many ways, they became the social networks of their time. As trade expanded, coffee reached Europe in the 17th century. At first, some viewed the unfamiliar beverage with suspicion, but its popularity grew rapidly. Unlike beer or wine, which were commonly consumed throughout the day, coffee sharpened the mind instead of dulling it. That made it especially appealing to merchants, writers, scientists, and businessmen. Coffee houses quickly spread across cities like London, Paris, Amsterdam, and Vienna. People from different professions gathered around small tables to discuss business, politics, science, and philosophy. Ideas moved as quickly as the coffee itself. In London, one coffee house would become especially influential. Opened by Edward Lloyd in the late 1600s, Lloyd's Coffee House attracted shipowners, merchants, and investors eager to exchange information about voyages and cargo. Before long, they began arranging marine insurance agreements there. Over time, those informal meetings evolved into Lloyd's of London, one of the world's most important insurance markets. Other coffee houses played equally significant roles. Merchants discussed investments. Bankers negotiated loans. Stockbrokers exchanged financial news. Some historians have even described London's coffee houses as the birthplace of modern business culture. Coffee didn't simply keep people awake. It created environments where information flowed freely, partnerships formed, and industries took shape. Its influence reached beyond commerce. During the Enlightenment, coffee houses became centers for intellectual debate. Scientists, philosophers, and political thinkers gathered to challenge old ideas and propose new ones. Many of the conversations that helped shape the modern world began over a simple cup of coffee. Unlike tea, which became closely tied to imperial trade, coffee helped build networks of knowledge, finance, and innovation. It didn't conquer territories. It connected minds. And those ideas would help transform economies for centuries to come. But while tea built trade empires and coffee fueled commerce and conversation, the next drink generated enormous wealth through a system that came at a devastating human cost. Tea connected continents. Coffee transformed commerce and ideas. But the third drink tells a much darker story. It is a story of enormous wealth built on human suffering. At its heart was sugar. Today, sugar is so common that it's easy to forget it was once one of the world's most valuable commodities. For centuries, it was considered a luxury reserved for the wealthy. That changed dramatically after European powers established colonies across the Caribbean and the Americas. The tropical climate proved ideal for growing sugarcane, and vast plantations soon covered islands such as Jamaica, Barbados, and Saint-Domingue. Producing sugar, however, demanded relentless labor. To meet that demand, millions of enslaved Africans were forcibly transported across the Atlantic in one of history's largest forced migrations. They worked under brutal conditions, harvesting and processing sugarcane from sunrise to sunset. For plantation owners and European empires, the profits were staggering. But those profits came at an unimaginable human cost. Sugar production created another valuable product as well. When sugarcane was processed, it left behind a thick syrup known as molasses. Rather than waste it, distillers fermented and distilled the molasses into rum. Rum quickly became one of the most profitable alcoholic beverages in the Atlantic world. Its importance extended far beyond taverns. It became a key part of the triangular trade. Manufactured goods from Europe were shipped to Africa. Enslaved people were then transported across the Atlantic to plantations in the Americas. Sugar and rum were shipped back to Europe, generating immense wealth that fueled further expansion. Each voyage reinforced a system that connected three continents through commerce, colonization, and exploitation. Rum also became deeply connected to naval power. For more than 2 centuries, sailors in the British Royal Navy received a daily rum ration, believing it helped preserve morale during long and difficult voyages. Merchant ships carried it across the world's oceans, making rum not just a commodity but a symbol of maritime empire. By the 18th century, sugar had become one of the most profitable industries on Earth. The wealth generated from sugar and rum helped finance ports, banks, factories, and expanding colonial empires. Yet behind every shipment lay the labor of millions whose lives were shaped by violence, displacement, and exploitation. Unlike tea or coffee, the story of sugar and rum cannot be told without acknowledging the immense human price that made their success possible. Together, these 3 drinks reveal an extraordinary truth. Tea drove global trade and imperial ambition. Coffee fueled business, finance, and the exchange of ideas. Sugar and rum generated immense wealth while exposing the devastating cost of empire. They were never just beverages. They were economic engines, political tools, and symbols of a rapidly changing world. The next time you pour a cup of tea, brew a coffee, or sweeten a drink, remember, history isn't shaped only by emperors, explorers, or generals. Sometimes, it's shaped by something as simple as what people choose to drink. And in the hands of nations, those ordinary drinks helped build extraordinary empires.